Her passion for what she believes is unmatched.
So you couldn't, I wanted to get to the point where you can shake me off that perfect piece.
She's a book-off radio host, philanthropist, and motivational speaker.
And I said, I'm going to write you a check for $10,000, which I'm not.
Spirit, soul, and body.
To get them some help through the transition.
I'm Karita D, and you're listening to Girlfriend Get a Life.
Four bodies of drama.
Sure.
Boys said they wanted schools to support them with. They wanted their teachers to support them with. All in the space of how we build and maintain relationships. They talked about first drama from home. And so again, just mentioning to parents, whatever the emotional condition of the home was last night, that's the emotional condition that that young man is coming to school with in the morning. And so the young men said, we need you to help us with that. And so we have an extended morning meeting.
Good afternoon from CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Nicole Best. First and foremost, we apologize for the technical difficulties that we're experiencing with the newscast this evening. Starting off, a former Barbados government minister indicted in the United States on money laundering charges. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, August 7th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. Former Minister of Industry, International Business and Commerce and Small Business Development in Barbados, Donville Innes, is facing the court in the United States on money laundering and money laundering conspiracy charges. Innes, who served as under the former Democratic Party administration, allegedly accepted bribes from a Barbadian insurance company in 2015 and 2016 and laundered the money through a company in the U.S. During the time of the charged conspiracy, Innes was a legal permanent resident of the United States, residing in both Tampa, Florida and Barbados. The 52-year-old Innes was arrested last Friday and was arraigned on Monday before U.S. Magistrate Judge Julie Sneed in the Middle District of Florida at the federal courthouse in Tampa. He was released on a $50,000 US bond. A 3-count indictment was unsealed in federal court in Brooklyn, outlining that indictment between August 2015 and April 2016. Innes engaged in a scheme to accept just over $36,000 US in bribes from high-level executives of an unnamed insurance company headquartered in Barbados. In exchange for the bribes, Innes leveraged his position as Minister of Industry to enable the insurance company to obtain 2 government contracts. He allegedly concealed the bribes by arranging to receive them through a dental company and a bank located in Elmont, New York. According to U.S. prosecutors, the Barbadian insurance company executives transferred the funds to the dental company using an invoice falsely claiming that the payments were for consulting services. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley has denied there was anything underhanded in her country accepting the Ross University School of Medicine school's move to the island from Dominica, insisting that the educational institution was unable to resume operations in the hurricane-struck island. Last Friday, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit announced Ross University, which had been forced to relocate its operations to St. Kitts in the state of Tennessee in the United States following the passage of Hurricane Maria last September, would be leaving the Eastern Caribbean nation after 40 years. Hours later, Mottley announced that Barbados would be the new home of the American University by January 5, 2018. According to media reports in Dominica, some irate Dominicans have harshly criticized Mottley for accepting the relocation, with one going as far as calling on the Caribbean Community CARICOM to sanction the newly elected leader for what has been termed an act of economic aggression against the sister nation. But in a statement issued on Tuesday, Mottley said the hands of the Barbados government are clean in this matter. She said Barbados came into the picture only when returning to Dominica for the start of the January semester in 2019 was not an option for Ross University. Mottley insisted this is not and has never been a case of poaching or enticing anyone away from Dominica. And for anyone in the region to suggest that is the case at best, ignorant of the fact, and at worst, downright malicious.
I'm not qualified to speak for or on behalf of Ross, but what I can say is that the hands of the Barbados government are clean in this matter. Let me make it absolutely clear. Barbados came into the picture only when, for Ross University, returning to Dominica for the start of the January semester in 2019 was not an option. This is not and has never been a case of poaching or enticing anyone away from Dominica.
Opposition parties in Trinidad and Tobago are questioning the timing of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's decision to fire Edmund Dillon as National Security Minister and replace him with Stuart Young. The announcement came just days after the government confirmed Gary Griffith as new police commissioner, and opposition parties are trying to find a link between the two developments. They're also questioning Young's ability to handle the post. We get more in this CNC3 news report.
This is a scandal of the highest order.
1 week after Gary Griffith got the government's vote for police commissioner, the Prime Minister makes another major adjustment to national security by firing Edmund Dillon and replacing him with Minister Stuart Young. But the opposition UNC is questioning the relationship between both events.
We were informed that there are ministers of the government who were not in support of Gary Griffith, and that is why they lifted the whip. Those ministers were not in support of Gary Griffith, and it appears that Mr. Dillon was one. And Mr. Dillon indicated that he was unwilling to work with Mr. Griffith. He was removed.
The Movement for Social Justice, however, questions the relationship between both men, given their respective military backgrounds.
Whether there was some conflict between the two when they were in the defense force.
David Abdullah also wonders if Minister Dillon had serious misgivings about Griffith as top cop during the conscience vote in Parliament. But with no proof of such, both the UNC and MSJ are worried about Young's ability to run the Ministry of National Security along with his other responsibilities.
The Ministry of National Security is a standalone ministry and requires the focus of a minister without any other distraction.
That is a curious decision because Mr. Young has absolutely no experience in law enforcement, absolutely none. He has no prior history with the criminal law agencies.
Dillon, who achieved the highest rank in the Defence Force, was instead moved to the Ministry of Housing, a portfolio once held by Dr. Rudal Munilal for 5 years. But Dillon's appointment makes him the 5th person to hold the housing post in less than 36 months under the PNM.
I think the Prime Minister has lost control of the government and the cabinet.
Dr. Munilal is calling on the Prime Minister to dissolve Parliament and call afresh elections to rid the country of any uncertainty.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chastanet says his government is intent on investigating an oil exploration agreement between the former administration and oil prospector Jack Grindberg of Orison Production Corporation. The controversial agreement for the exploration of oil and gas in St. Lucia's waters was signed by former Prime Minister Kenny Anthony and has been in the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes for over 6 years. At a recent media brief, Chastanet said there are many matters surrounding that agreement that are still pending and need investigating. He said his administration has met with a lawyer who is preparing a proposal to do a full investigation.
So was there the adequate amount of due diligence that was done by the state? And if it wasn't, then who's negligent? And should somebody be held accountable? So these are the kinds of questions that, unfortunately, that when we've brought them up internally, because of the lack of precedence, nobody has been able really to answer those questions. And we feel that this is an important enough matter that it deserves its own investigation in order that we can put a chronological order as to what transpired and whether, in fact, any rules were broken and whether, in fact, it's a valid contract.
Chastanet says the contract seemed to have been signed without the relevant authorization and there were no copies of the transaction in government offices. He says the investigation needs also to look at whether or not anyone can be held accountable.
So how is it that a document or a contract was signed, an agreement was signed, that did not go to cabinet and did not go to parliament? Also that the documents themselves were not housed in government's ministries. The documents were kept at the ambassador's home in New York. Furthermore, now that we've entered it into this contract and the state is now having to incur this expense to defend a position in which nobody knew we had. So we have to determine whether, in fact, anybody can be held accountable, whether any form of negligence, and who should be held accountable for what has transpired.
The contract giving Grindberg permission to explore for oil and gas was signed in 2000. Approximately 6 years later, he sued the St. Lucia government for what he says was a breach of contract based on a license he got, affording him sole rights to explore for oil under the St. Lucia seabed in an area that spans 8.7 million acres of maritime territory. That matter is still in the international court. CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque says a lack of funds has hindered the region's implementation of sustainable practices aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change in small island developing states, SIDS. The Samoa Pathway, as it is called, was agreed to at the 3rd International SIDS Conference in Samoa in 2014. Speaking at the Caribbean SIDS preparatory meeting in Belize on Monday, ahead of next year's midterm review, LaRocque said the lack of funds is a direct result of the erosion of the attention paid to SIDS at the international level.
Further, our community is faced with the question of whether our member states should get special treatment as SIDS because of their classification as middle-income countries. This must be responded to vigorously. The International Monetary Fund has pointed out that our member states exhibit extreme versions of long-term, low growth, high debt, significant vulnerabilities, and limited resilience to shocks which set them apart from other middle-income states.
He told participants at the 4-day meeting, which ends on Thursday, that the islands of the Caribbean are also faced with the challenges of de-risking and blacklisting, which directly affect the ability of countries to do business on the international market.
These are realities that confront our CARICOM SIDS and which we must address. We must therefore at this session hone our strategy to collaborate with our partners in the Indian Ocean and Pacific states to support our positions, so that the unified strength of all the SIDS go forward to the high-level meeting in 2019. I believe firmly in the SIDS collectivity and in strengthening SIDS inter- and intra-regional cooperation as one of the underlying and fundamental pillars for strengthening the process.
The United Kingdom shouldn't force the Cayman Islands into publishing the names of asset holders on the British overseas territory. That's the view of some British lawmakers who visited Cayman last week. The issue of public registries for British overseas territories has been a hot topic in recent times, with some islands going as far as threatening constitutional change to protect their economies. We get more in this Cayman 27 news report.
Visiting British MPs Andrew Rosendale, Henry Smith, Colonel Bob Stewart and Martin Vickers say the UK's sanctions and anti-money laundering law needs to be changed.
It's not right that effectively we're expecting Cayman Islands to have a much more rigid system than that we in fact use ourselves in mainland UK.
Under the UK law, Cayman has to make public a list of asset owners by 2020 or face an order in council.
But certainly an order in council would be a direct challenge to the autonomy of an overseas territory to make its own decisions in its own interests.
They say it's not too late to fix the situation. All it takes is political will on the UK government's part.
So it needs sorting out, and the government didn't want to go down this road. They were forced into it, and I think we all hope that the government will take a fresh look at this and try and find a way of mitigating what's been decided and maybe even amending it before it comes in. But
government says it will take its fight to court if needed, but the visiting MPs steered clear of picking sides.
Well, the Cayman Islands is entitled to challenge that, and the legal route is the way to do it. So they're entitled to do that. It's not for us to support the Cayman government against the UK government. It's for the right decision to be sought, and hopefully that will happen.
They say they'll share what they've learned during their time in Cayman with their colleagues overseas.
Over in the Bahamas, police are investigating an escape attempt by inmates at the Department of Correctional Services last weekend. In a brief statement, the National Security Minister said that officers foiled the plot by 2 inmates when a routine check of a male dormitory uncovered a hole in the ceiling above one of the cells. The National Security Minister said the damage to the ceiling has since been repaired and all inmates are accounted for. The 2 inmates who were plotting to break out are expected to be formally charged this week. The statement gave no further details about the escape plan or the identity of the 2 inmates. The United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, has welcomed the decision of the Supreme Court in Brazil, to overturn a decision of a federal judge there to suspend the admission of Venezuelans to the country and close the border. The temporary suspension was granted on Monday by the federal judge in Roraima, who said the border with Venezuela will remain closed to Venezuelans fleeing economic and political turmoil until Brazil can put in place the right conditions to receive the huge influx of people. The decision was overturned by the Supreme Court shortly before midnight on Monday, with Supreme Court Judge Rosa Weber saying it was not justified to take the easy path to close the doors because of difficulties in hosting refugees. In a United Nations media brief on Tuesday, Deputy Spokesman for the Secretary-General, Farhan Haq, said the humanitarian agency was happy with the judge's decision and continues to support the government as it keeps the borders open and allows people to enter the country to find a safe place to restart their lives.
UNHCR has been supporting the government as it keeps the borders open and allows people to enter the country to find a safe place to restart their lives. UNHCR has a team present at the border and will continue to monitor the situation.
Over the last 3 years, thousands of Venezuelans have fled to neighboring countries, namely Colombia, Brazil and Guyana, to escape political and economic repressions as opposition to President Nicolas Maduro's leadership continues. Authorities in the state of Roraima in Brazil's Amazon region say some 500 Venezuelans cross the border every day. Jamaica's government says it will be developing a rescue plan for coffee farmers. Agricultural Minister Audley Shaw made the announcement as farmers expressed concern about a plunge in the price of coffee. We get more in this TVJ News report.
There's coffee on trees right now that cannot be picked. And if they're going to be picked, they are being offered a price that can barely cover the cost of reaping it. Can't work.
Agriculture Minister Audley Shaw on the plight of farmers across the country. He said 20 years ago, Jamaica would reap about 700,000 boxes of Blue Mountain coffee and 400,000 boxes of High Mountain coffee.
If we're lucky this year, we will reap 230,000 boxes of Blue Mountain coffee. And we will reap 20,000 boxes of High Mountain coffee. And I'm going to be sitting down with all of our coffee farmers, large and small, and we're going to work out a rescue plan for the coffee industry in Jamaica.
Part of the plan may include a strategy to reduce the number of coffee imports.
We are importing too much coffee into this country, and we import more coffee, and then we have we water down the amount of Jamaican coffee we put into the product, and we call it Blue Mountain Blend. Not acceptable. We need more pure Blue Mountain, because if we continue on this trend, it becomes a disincentive for our farmers, and one day we won't have the Blue Mountain coffee. We just will be looking at the mountains.
In the meantime,
still to come in Newsline Sport, all systems go for the start of the 2018 Hero Caribbean Premier League. Stay with us. Sport is next.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. After a hurricane, get medical attention for injured persons as soon as it's safe to do so.
Dominica's World Creole Music Festival in 2018, October 26, 27, 28 at the Windsor Park Stadium in the capital city, Roseau. 3 nights, over 8 genres, 40 years of independence, one location, Dominica, the 20th edition of Dominica's World Creole Music Festival. For more information, like our Facebook page, Dominica Festivals. Visit our website, www.dominicafestivals.com for all travel, accommodation, and ticketing details. My love, my home, my Dominica, building a resilient nation. See you there! Proudly sponsored by the Government of Dominica and Discover Dominica Authority.
Guyana's first carnival experience has been dubbed a success. The festival, which kicked off on May 18th, climaxed on Sunday with the parades of the bands. Thousands of Guyanese from all corners of the country, as well as a large amount of tourists, on Saturday braved the weather and took to the streets of Georgetown to get a glimpse of the beautiful and earthily decked out men and women in their brightly colored costumes to celebrate the country's 52nd independence anniversary.
Organizers of the Hero Caribbean Premier League say all is set for this year's tournament, which begins Wednesday. And the winner of the August 8th to September 16th competition will walk away with a brand new trophy. Trinbago Knight Riders are aiming to win a third title in 4 seasons, while Guyana Amazon Warriors, St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots and St. Lucia Stars are looking to lift the trophy for the first time. Trinbago Knight Riders skipper Dwayne Bravo wants to be the first captain to lift the new trophy, which was unveiled on Monday at the Queen's Park Oval, the venue for the opener between the Knight Riders and the Stars, which is captained by Kieran Pollard. We get more from Ian Watson of C Sport.
The new trophy is in town. It was unveiled at the Queen's Park Oval, venue for Wednesday's opener between Trinbago Knight Riders and the St. Lucia Stars. Perhaps there is no one who is more excited than CPL's CEO, Damien O'Donoghue, for the tournament to start.
You know, we've obviously been putting the tournament together with the team since the last final. We're really excited, delighted that we're 2 days away from the start of the tournament again, and really looking forward to it to be the most successful tournament yet.
Chief Operating Officer Peter Russell says everything is in place for the tournament. He says there are no more advertisement spots available as the tournament is completely sold out.
We're very excited. This is the most exciting time just before the tournament starts. Everyone has their expectations in terms of who's going to do what during the tournament. I think as organisers, it's been an interesting year for us. We've been out selling CPL around the world, and we've had great response.
Back to the trophy. Dwayne Bravo is happy to have a new trophy on offer, and he wants it.
To this nice trophy, at least it's nicer than the last one. So hopefully I'll be the first captain to lift it again this year. CPL is a very good tournament. It's one of the most successful tournaments in the world, one of the most anticipated tournaments in the world, and playing the first game here, home at my home ground at the Queen's Park Oval. It's going to be a full house. I want to wish all the team all the best in this tournament, and the fans going to get their money's worth.
Jamaican swim sensation Ali Atkinson will receive an Order of Distinction in the rank of Commander for outstanding representation of her island in the field of swimming and being the first black woman to win a World Championships title. The 29-year-old recently snatched 5 medals at the 2018 Central American and Caribbean Games in Colombia, and she made swimming history in 2014 when she became the first black woman to win a world swimming title, the women's 100 meters breaststroke at the World Short Course Championships in Qatar. And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dominica's World Creole Music Festival in 2018, October 26, 27, 28 at the Windsor Park Stadium in the capital city, Roseau. 3 nights, over 8 genres, 40 years of independence, 1 location, Dominica, the 20th edition of Dominica's World Creole Music Festival. For more information, like our Facebook page, Dominica Festivals. Visit our website, www.dominicafestivals.com for all travel, accommodation, and ticketing details. My love, my home, my Dominica. Building a resilient nation. See you there! Proudly sponsored by the Government of Dominica and Discover Dominica Authority.
I like that. I like that.
You gotta let it settle.
I'll let it settle. Look at the color. Can you see that? Isn't that pretty?
Yep. I think you need a little bit more.
I think it'll top me off.
Yeah, there we go. So we got Ruffino Sparkling Rosé from Italy.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love Ruffino. I was an old Ruffino Chianti boy back in the day.
Yeah, Ruffino makes a famous line of Chiantis. We got Prosecco.
Again, the major developments of this day: former Barbados Government Minister Donville Innes indicted in the United States after allegedly accepting bribes from an insurance company in his country and laundering the money through an American company. And in sport, all is set for the start of the 2018 Hero Caribbean Premier League. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CarnaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to Caribvision TV and subscribe to Caribvision's YouTube channel. I'm Nicole Best. Good evening.